For those who experienced World War II in the Pacific, living through combat was truly a hell on Earth. Hundreds of thousands of people, soldiers and civilians alike, were killed or wounded. World War II saw some of the most ingenious and horrifying traps designed to devastate soldiers and break their spirits. From the infamous Bouncing Betty, which leapt into the air before exploding, to booby-trapped corpses that turned acts of compassion into fatal mistakes, these traps were both physically and psychologically devastating. Then there were the deceptive, explosive decoys, rigged buildings, and vehicles that lured soldiers to their doom. Can you imagine encountering trapdoors and hidden explosives in war-torn cities, or the brutal simplicity of punji sticks and spiked bombs? And let's not forget the bizarre ingenuity of explosive rats. Each of these traps not only inflicted grievous injuries, but also instilled constant fear and mistrust among troops. So how were these traps made, and how effective were they? Let's get started. And remember to let us know in the comments what topics you'd like us to cover next. Bouncing Betty, S-Mine. The Bouncing Betty, officially known as the S-Mine, was a notorious anti-personnel mine developed by Germany during World War II. Its design and effectiveness made it one of the most feared weapons on the battlefield. The S-Mine was conceived to inflict maximum casualties and create a psychological impact on enemy soldiers. The S-Mine operated through a sophisticated mechanism. When a soldier steps on the mine, it triggers a three-pronged fuse. This action causes a small initial explosion that propels the mine into the air, reaching approximately waist height. Once airborne, the main charge detonates, scattering hundreds of steel balls or metal fragments in all directions. This lethal spray of shrapnel could maim or kill anyone within a 20 to 30 meter radius, making it particularly effective against groups of infantry. The psychological impact of the Bouncing Betty was devastating. The shrapnel was designed to penetrate deep into the flesh, causing severe injuries or death. Soldiers who survived an encounter with an S-mine often faced long recoveries and permanent disabilities. The psychological impact was equally significant. The unpredictable nature of the S-mine meant that soldiers lived in constant fear of triggering one. This fear could cause hesitation and paralysis, slowing troop movements and lowering morale. Booby-trapped corpses. The tactic of booby-trapping corpses was a grim and ruthless strategy used during World War II to maximize casualties and instill fear among enemy troops. This method involved rigging the bodies of dead soldiers or civilians with explosives designed to detonate when the body was moved. The concept behind this tactic was to exploit the natural inclination of soldiers to recover their fallen comrades or inspect dead enemies, turning acts of compassion and curiosity into deadly traps. Both Axis and Allied forces used booby-trapped corpses in various theaters of the war. One notable instance occurred during the North African campaign, where German forces frequently employed this tactic to slow advancing Allied troops. Another example was seen in the Pacific Theater, where Japanese forces facing imminent defeat resorted to such measures to inflict additional damage to American soldiers. These traps were often set with grenades or other explosive devices concealed under the bodies, activated by the slightest movement. The psychological impact of booby-trapped corpses on soldiers was profound. The uncertainty and fear of encountering such traps caused significant hesitation and stress. Soldiers had to approach every fallen body with extreme caution, often delaying their progress and adding to the mental burden of combat. The knowledge that even the dead could be weaponized created an environment of constant anxiety, eroding trust and camaraderie among troops as they became wary of potential traps set by the enemy. Explosive decoys. Explosive decoys were a cunning and deadly tactic employed during World War II to deceive and harm enemy forces. These decoys came in various forms, including fake buildings, equipment, and even vehicles, all designed to lure unsuspecting soldiers into triggering concealed explosives. One common type of explosive decoy was the fake building, such as a seemingly abandoned house or bunker. These structures were rigged with explosives that would detonate when enemy troops entered or tampered with them. Another type was decoy equipment, like weapon caches or communication devices, designed to appear valuable to enemy forces. Additionally, vehicles such as jeeps or trucks were sometimes booby-trapped, presenting a tempting target for soldiers looking to seize enemy assets. The rigging of these decoys involved various mechanisms and triggers. Pressure plates were commonly used. They would activate the explosive when a certain weight was applied, such as a soldier stepping on a floorboard or picking up a piece of equipment. Tripwires were also prevalent, set to trigger the explosive when pulled or disturbed. In some cases, remote detonations were used, where an observer would trigger the explosive from a distance, allowing for precise timing. One notable example of explosive decoys in action was during the D-Day invasion, where German forces planted booby-trapped equipment along the beaches of Normandy. These included seemingly abandoned weapons and supply crates that would explode upon handling. Another example occurred in the Italian campaign, where Allied forces frequently encountered booby-trapped buildings in towns and villages. These traps caused significant casualties and delayed the advance of troops. The effects of these explosive decoys were devastating. They not only inflicted physical harm, but also created a pervasive atmosphere of distrust and caution among soldiers. Every building, vehicle, or piece of equipment became a potential threat, slowing down operations and increasing stress levels. Trapdoors and concealed explosives. The chaotic environment of urban warfare during World War II provided a fertile ground for the use of trapdoors and concealed explosives. Cities and towns with their dense infrastructure and numerous hiding places became deadly mazes filled with hidden dangers. Both Axis and Allied forces used these tactics to ambush and inflict casualties on the enemy, while leveraging the complex urban landscape to their advantage. The setup of these traps varied, but generally involved meticulous planning and execution. Trapdoors were often integrated into the floors of buildings, disguised as part of the natural environment. These could be triggered by pressure plates, pulling of wires, or manual activation. Concealed explosives were hidden under floorboards, in walls, or within common objects like furniture and fixtures. The triggering mechanisms included tripwires, pressure-sensitive devices, or remote detonation systems, allowing the traps to be activated when the enemy least expected it. This ensured maximum surprise and effectiveness. One of the most notorious uses of trapdoors and concealed explosives was during the Battle of Stalingrad. The city, reduced to rubble, became a prime location for Soviet forces to employ these tactics against the advancing Germans. Buildings were rigged with explosives that would detonate when German soldiers entered, causing massive casualties and hindering their progress. Another significant incident occurred in the Italian campaign, particularly in the Battle of Monte Cassino. Allied forces encountered numerous booby-trapped buildings where concealed explosives and trapdoors wreaked havoc, slowing their advance and causing severe losses. The psychological impact of these traps in urban warfare was profound. Soldiers had to move cautiously, aware that any step could trigger a deadly explosion. This constant vigilance and the omnipresent threat of hidden traps contributed to the high stress and fatigue experienced by troops. Spiked bombs. Spiked bombs were a type of anti-personnel weapon designed to maximize destruction and casualty rates upon impact. The concept behind spiked bombs was simple yet deadly. By attaching spikes to the exterior of a bomb, the device could lodge itself into the ground or penetrate surfaces more effectively, ensuring that it remained in place until detonation. This design increased the bomb's lethality by enhancing its stability and ensuring the maximum number of fragments would be projected outward upon explosion. Spiked bombs were deployed primarily via aerial bombing or artillery shelling. When dropped from planes, the spikes allowed the bombs to embed themselves firmly into the ground or structures, preventing them from bouncing or rolling away from the intended target area. This stability was crucial for ensuring that the bombs detonated in a controlled manner, causing maximum damage. Artillery shells equipped with spikes were similarly designed to penetrate and hold their position upon impact. This made them particularly effective in creating hazardous zones that were difficult to clear, as unexploded ordnance could remain hidden but stable, posing a constant threat to enemy forces. The use of spiked bombs proved to be highly effective in several key battles during World War II. For instance, during the Allied invasion of Normandy on D-Day, spiked bombs were used to target German fortifications along the beaches. Their ability to lodge into the ground and remain stable increased their effectiveness, causing significant damage to enemy defenses and personnel. Another notable example was during the Battle of Monte Cassino, where spiked artillery shells were employed to breach fortified positions and create hazardous environments for German soldiers. The presence of these bombs forced enemy troops to move cautiously, slowing their advance and creating psychological stress. Explosive rats. During World War II, the British Special Operations Executive, or SOE, devised a series of unconventional and creative tactics to sabotage German operations. Among these was the plan to use explosive rats, a novel and ingenious method intended to cause chaos and destruction within the German war machine. This plan exemplified the innovative and resourceful approach the Allies employed in their efforts to undermine the enemy. The concept behind explosive rats was both simple and cunning. Dead rats were filled with plastic explosives and equipped with a detonator. These explosive-laden carcasses were then intended to be strategically placed near German industrial facilities, primarily in locations where coal was stored or transported. The idea was that workers would find the dead rats and, following standard disposal procedures, throw them into boilers used to power machinery. The intense heat of the boilers would trigger the explosives, causing substantial damage to the machinery and potentially leading to severe disruptions in industrial output. This method of sabotage was designed to appear as a routine accident, thereby adding a layer of psychological impact by making it difficult for the Germans to identify the cause of the destruction. Despite its ingenuity, the plan to use explosive rats was ultimately foiled before it could be effectively implemented. A shipment of the explosive rats was intercepted by the Germans, who quickly realized the potential danger these seemingly innocuous animals posed. The discovery of the plot had a significant psychological impact on German forces, as it demonstrated the lengths to which the Allies would go to sabotage their operations. This revelation forced the Germans to implement more stringent security measures and to be wary of even the most mundane objects, contributing to an atmosphere of distrust and vigilance. While the explosive rats did not achieve their intended physical impact, the psychological effect was notable. The mere idea that something as ordinary as a dead rat could be turned into a weapon of war underscored the resourcefulness and determination of the Allied forces, leaving a lasting impression on the German military and industrial workers. So, which of these traps do you think was the most terrifying and why? Please let us know in the comments section below, and remember to like and share. Also, hit the subscribe button to get notifications on the latest uploads on the channel. As always, see you in the following video.